Emma Turner loved quiet mornings. Sundays were her favorite, especially the ones that came with rain. Her small apartment in downtown Seattle felt like a warm cocoon. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wrapping around her as she sat by the window watching drops race down the glass. She wore her favorite flannel pajamas, the soft ones with tiny stars, and had no plans to leave the couch. After a week full of deadlines and late-night design projects, she wanted one thing: peace. The world outside was slow gray and calm until an unexpected sound broke through the sharp, rhythmic knock on her front door. Emma froze mid-sip, frowning. Hardly anyone visited her, especially not this early. She glanced at the clock. 8:15 a.m. Who could it be? Maybe a package delivery, she thought. But the knock came again, firmer this time. Then a voice. Emma, it's Noah. Her eyes widened. Noah Carter, her neighbor from across the hall. She had seen him plenty of times before, helping other tenants carry boxes or offering a polite nod in the elevator. They'd exchanged smiles, small talk about the weather, but nothing more. Still, there was something about his calm energy, his quiet kindness that had always made her notice. And now he was at her door. Emma stood up quickly, almost spilling her coffee. "Oh no," she muttered, looking down at her pajamas. Her hair was a messy bun of chaos, her face bare, and she certainly didn't look ready for company. She debated not answering, pretending she wasn't home, but then he knocked again, his tone worried. "I think you might want to see this. It looks important." Curiosity won. She placed the mug on the counter, took a deep breath, and opened the door. Noah stood there, his hoodie damp from rain, his dark hair clinging to his forehead. In his hands was a small cardboard box, slightly soaked. "Hey," he said, giving a faint smile. "Your mailbox downstairs was open." This was inside, and it was starting to get wet. "Thought I should bring it up before it got ruined." Emma blinked, surprised. "Oh wow, thank you. I didn't even know I had a package." She reached for it, their fingers brushing briefly, and that tiny contact sent a small, unexpected spark through her. "No problem," he said with an easy shrug. "I figured you'd want it before it turned into mush." She looked at the rain dripping from his sleeves and instinctively said, "You're soaked. Come in for a minute. You shouldn't stand in that weather." He hesitated, polite as always. "You sure?" "Of course," she replied quickly, stepping aside. "Just ignore my pajamas. It's a no-judgment zone." Noah chuckled as he stepped inside, wiping his shoes on the mat. "Trust me, pajamas are a sign of good priorities on a Sunday." His voice was deep, but gentle, and Emma noticed the way it filled the room steady. Warm, easy to listen to. Her apartment wasn't big, but it felt cozy. Soft lights, books stacked near the couch, a candle burning on the table. Noah glanced around, clearly impressed. "This place feels like a real home," he said. Emma smiled, a little embarrassed. "Thanks. It's just me and too many candles." She poured him a cup of coffee without asking. It just felt natural. He accepted it with a grateful nod, the steam rising between them as they sat across from each other. "You didn't have to," he said. "It's the least I can do," she replied. "You saved my Mayland, probably my day." For a few moments they just talked. About the weather, the neighborhood, the broken elevator that everyone complained about. It was easy, the kind of conversation that flowed without effort. Emma couldn't help noticing how Noah smiled with his eyes, or how he listened like every word mattered. Then, as she went to check the label on the box, Noah spoke again, quieter this time. "Actually, that's not the only reason I came." She looked up, puzzled. "It's not." He shifted in his seat, clearly nervous. "No, I did bring the package, but I also, well, there's something I've been meaning to say for a while." Emma tilted her head, unsure where this was going. "Okay." Noah met her eyes, his voice softer. "I know we've only talked here and there, but you're different. You've got this calm energy. Every time I see you, it makes the day feel a little better." Emma blinked, stunned. Her first instinct was disbelief. Was he serious? She wasn't used to such honesty. Noah. she began, but he kept going, not out of boldness, but honesty. I didn't plan to say this today, especially not while you're in pajamas, he said with a nervous laugh. But I like you, Emma. I just thought you should know. Silence filled the room. The rain pattered softly against the windows. Emma could feel her heartbeat in her ears. She wasn't sure what to say. Her life had been quiet, predictable, and suddenly it wasn't. She looked at him, seeing not just the neighbor she waved to in the hallway, but a man brave enough to show up in the rain just to say what he felt. Her voice finally came, soft and uncertain. That's a lot to say on a Sunday morning. He gave a small smile, nodding. Yeah, terrible timing, huh? She let out a light laugh, easing the tension. Maybe a little, but I appreciate your honesty. For a moment, they just sat there, two people caught between awkwardness and something new, something fragile. Then Emma stood and said, "You should at least stay until the rain slows down. I'll make more coffee." He hesitated, then smiled. "Only if you're sure." "I'm sure," she said, meeting his gaze. And as she poured another cup, she couldn't help but feel something shift inside her. It wasn't dramatic or overwhelming, it was quiet but real. Like the first warm ray of sunlight after days of clouds, Noah watched her from across the table, his usual calmness now mixed with hope. Emma caught him looking, and for a second, their eyes met. No words were needed. Outside, the rain softened to a drizzle, and inside, a story that neither of them expected had just begun. It wasn't love yet, but it was something honest, something that might become love if given the chance. And Emma, sitting there in her star-covered pajamas, realized that sometimes the most ordinary mornings could turn into something extraordinary. All because someone decided to knock. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, painting the windows with streaks of silver as Emma poured a second cup of coffee for Noah. The air between them was softer now, comfortable yet charged with something new. She could still hear his words echoing in her head. "I like you, Emma." Simple, honest, but somehow impossible to ignore. She handed him the mug with a faint smile, trying to calm the flutter inside her chest. "So," she said, sitting back down, "you just decided today was the day to confess that." Noah chuckled, scratching the back of his neck. "Yeah, not my best planning. I didn't wake up thinking I'd tell you that while you were half asleep in pajamas." Emma laughed, the sound easing the tension that had been building since his unexpected arrival. "Well, at least you picked a memorable moment." "Guess so," he replied, smiling, "though I'm not sure if it's a good or bad one yet." She studied him for a moment. There was something steady about him, the kind of man who didn't rush things, who meant what he said. It was rare. And maybe that's what made her curious. "Why me?" she asked quietly. He looked thoughtful, his gaze drifting to the window. "Because you seem like someone who finds beauty in small things. I've seen you stop to help that stray cat downstairs. I've seen you leave notes on the community board when you bake cookies. You make the world softer, Emma." His words caught her off guard. People didn't usually notice those little things, let alone mention them. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. "You pay attention a lot, don't you?" she asked. He nodded. "Only when something or someone makes it worth it." Emma felt her cheeks warm, and she quickly took a sip of her coffee to hide it. "You're pretty good with words for someone who works with numbers," she teased, remembering that he'd mentioned being an accountant once in passing. He smiled. "Numbers are easier than people. But sometimes you meet someone who makes you want to understand people too." The conversation moved easily after that. They talked about their jobs, the neighbors, even the little diner down the street that served terrible coffee but had the best pancakes. Emma found herself laughing more than she had in weeks. It wasn't forced. It was real. When Noah glanced at his watch, hours had passed. "I should probably go," he said reluctantly. "Didn't mean to take over your whole morning." Emma glanced at the clock and was surprised. It was nearly noon. "You didn't," she said softly. "It's been nice." He smiled. "Yeah, it has." Before he left, he paused by the door. "Hey, would you want to grab dinner sometime?" Not as neighbors, but as something else. Emma hesitated, not out of disinterest, but because she hadn't expected her quiet Sunday to turn into this. "Dinner sounds nice," she said finally. "But maybe start with coffee first." He laughed. "Coffee I can do." After he left, the apartment felt strangely still. Emma sat back on the couch, her heart oddly restless. She told herself it was nothing, just a nice gesture, a kind man, a good morning. But deep down, she knew something had shifted. The next few days went by with a strange rhythm. They ran into each other in the hallway more often, by accident or maybe not. They'd chat, exchange smiles, and each time it felt a little easier, a little warmer. Then came Friday. It was their coffee day. Emma arrived at the small cafe near the park, dressed casually but still a little nervous. Noah was already there, sitting by the window, 2 cups of coffee, waiting. "You're early," she said. "So are you," he replied. "Guess we both didn't want to be late." Kay sat and talked for hours again, about everything and nothing. The cafe buzzed softly around them, but it felt like they were in their own quiet world. Emma found herself telling him things she hadn't told anyone in a long time about her dreams. Her doubts, her family back in Oregon. He listened, really listened, like every word mattered. At one point, she asked, "You always this easy to talk to?" He shrugged. "Only when it feels right." It wasn't a line. It was just the truth. When they left the cafe, it was sunset. The sky glowed in soft orange and the air smelled of pine and rain. They walked side by side toward their building. The silence between them comfortable. At the entrance, Noah turned to her. "Emma, I know this might sound soon, but I'd like to see where this goes. No pressure, just honestly." Emma smiled, touched by his directness. "I like honesty," she said. "So, yes, let's see where it goes." That night, as Emma lay in bed, she couldn't sleep. She thought about the way Noah had looked at her, not with expectation, but with quiet admiration. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at her like that. Over the next few weeks, their connection deepened. They spent time together, naturally grocery shopping, movie nights, walks after dinner. It wasn't rushed. It just grew, like something that had always been meant to. One evening, as they sat on the rooftop of their building watching the city lights, Noah turned to her and said, "You know, what's strange? I almost didn't knock that day. I was nervous. Thought it might be weird." Emma laughed softly. "If you hadn't, I'd probably still be sitting in pajamas watching the rain." "Guess fate had other plans," he said with a smile. She looked at him then, her heart full. Yeah, it did. But as peaceful as things seemed, there was a subtle storm brewing inside her. Because while she was falling for him, she was also afraid. Afraid of losing herself again, of trusting someone too much, too fast. The last time she had opened her heart, it had ended badly. And though Noah was different, the fear still lingered. He noticed her quiet moments. The way she sometimes looked away when he got too close emotionally. But instead of pushing, he gave her space. That's what made her care even more. One night, as they walked home from dinner, she finally asked, "Why me? Really? You could be with someone more outgoing, more certain." Noah looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because you're real. You don't try to be perfect. You just are." Those words stayed with her long after they reached their building. She didn't reply right away. But she felt something deep inside her start to trust again. That night, before falling asleep, she whispered to herself, "Maybe. This time it'll be different." And though she didn't know it yet, the next part of their story would test that belief in ways she never expected. Because sometimes love begins with a knock, but staying in love requires learning to open the door again and again, even when you're afraid of what's on the other side. The weeks that followed were filled with quiet happiness. Emma and Noah had settled into a rhythm that felt easy and warm. Their connection had deepened without needing big words or grand gestures. Sometimes they'd cook dinner together in her kitchen, laughing when they burned the pasta. Other nights, they'd sit by the window, sharing stories from their past while the city hummed below. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt safe not because everything was perfect, but because Noah made her believe that even imperfections could be beautiful. But love, no matter how gentle, always comes with shadows. One evening, as autumn winds brushed through the city, Emma received a phone call that shook her quiet world. It was from her ex David, the man who had once promised her forever but left when things got hard. His voice brought back memories she thought she had buried for good. He said he was back in town and wanted to talk, to make things right. Emma listened in silence, unsure what to say. When she hung up, her heart felt heavier than it had in months. No one noticed the shift immediately. That night, as they sat on her couch, he asked softly, "Something on your mind?" Emma hesitated. "Just someone from my past called. It caught me off guard." "Someone important?" She nodded slowly. "He was. A long time ago." Noah didn't push further. He just said, "You don't owe me any explanations. I trust you." But his eyes revealed a quiet worry, the kind that comes from caring deeply in the days that followed. Emma tried to act normal, but something between them had changed. She became quieter, distracted. Noah tried to reach her, but she built invisible walls, unsure how to explain the confusion inside her. She didn't want David back, but hearing his voice had stirred old doubts. What if she was repeating the same mistakes? What if she wasn't ready for something real again? One evening, Noah came over with takeout. He found her sitting by the window, staring at the rain. "Hey," he said gently, "I brought dinner. Thought you might be hungry." She looked up, forcing a smile. "You didn't have to. I wanted to." He set the food down and joined her. For a moment, they just sat there, listening to the rain hit the glass. Then he said, "Emma, talk to me. Don't shut me out." Her voice broke a little when she finally spoke. "I'm scared, Noah. Every time I get close to someone, it ends. I don't want to lose you, but I don't want to hurt you either." Noah reached for her hand. "You're not going to lose me because of fear. Just let me in. We'll figure it out together." His sincerity melted her defenses, and she leaned against him, letting the silence speak for what words couldn't. But still, there was a distance she couldn't shake. A few days later, while Emma was at work, David showed up at the cafe where she managed the morning shift. He looked different, older, regretful. "Emma," he said quietly, "I know I don't deserve it, but I needed to see you." She froze, torn between anger and curiosity. "Why now?" "Because I finally understand what I lost," he said, "and I want to fix it." His words hit hard, but they didn't feel right anymore. She had spent years healing from what he broke. And now, sitting across from him, she realized something: she no longer missed him. "Not the way she thought she did, David," she said calmly. "You don't get to fix things just because you feel guilty. I've moved on." He nodded slowly. "Is it that neighbor guy? The one you used to mention?" She hesitated. "His name is Noah. And yes, he's part of my life now." David gave a faint smile, sad but understanding. "Then I guess I'm too late." When she got home that night, Noah was waiting by her door. "You okay?" he asked softly. She looked at him, tired but certain. "Yeah, I saw David today." His jaw tensed slightly, but he didn't say anything. "I told him I'd moved on," she continued, "because I have. But I realized something important today." "What's that?" "That moving on isn't about forgetting someone. It's about choosing someone new every day, even when it's scary. And I choose you, Noah." He looked at her for a long moment, then smiled, a slow, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "That's all I needed to hear." From that moment, something changed again, this time for the better. Emma felt lighter, like she had finally closed the last chapter of her past. She started opening up more, letting Noah see parts of her she used to hide: her insecurities, her dreams, her fears. And he never judged. He just listened, always patient, always kind. One night, they were walking back from the grocery store when Noah suddenly stopped. "You know what's funny?" he said. "All this started because I knocked on your door one rainy morning. I was just trying to ask about a package, and now—" Emma laughed softly. Now we're here. Yeah, he said with a grin. Now we're here. But life has its own ways of testing happiness. The next week, Noah got a call from his company. They were offering him a major promotion, one that required moving to Chicago. It was the kind of opportunity people waited years for. When he told Emma, she tried to be happy for him, but her chest tightened. "That's amazing, Noah," she said, forcing a smile. "You deserve it." He looked at her carefully. "It's not amazing if it means leaving you." "Don't say that," she whispered. "You have to take it. It's your dream." He reached out, touching her cheek. "You're part of that dream now." They both knew what this meant. Long distance wasn't easy, and though neither wanted to say it, the uncertainty hung in the air. For the first time since they met, silence filled the space between them, not the comforting kind, but the heavy, uncertain kind that made both their hearts ache. That night, Emma sat alone on her couch, remembering the day he first knocked on her door. The same nervous energy, the same flutter in her chest. She had no idea back then that he would become such a part of her life. And now she was scared of losing it all again. As she stared at the empty cup of coffee on the table, she whispered to herself, "I don't want this to end." But deep down, she knew sometimes love isn't about holding on tightly. It's about having faith that even when distance separates two people, the connection remains. The next morning, Noah knocked again, this time softly, like he didn't want to disturb her. When she opened the door, his eyes were tired but gentle. "I leave in 2 days," he said quietly. Emma took a breath, her voice trembling. "Then let's make those 2 days count." And for the next 48 hours, they did. They didn't talk about the future or what would happen next. They just lived cooking breakfast together, watching old movies, sitting in silence when words felt too heavy. It wasn't about saying goodbye. It was about remembering why they started. When the final night came, Emma stood at her door in her pajamas again, just like the first time. Noah smiled sadly. "Full circle," he said. She nodded, her heart full. "Full circle." He leaned forward and said softly, "I'll knock again, no matter how far I go." And with that, he left. But as the door closed, Emma didn't cry. She knew this wasn't an ending. It was just another beginning, the kind love writes when it's strong enough to wait. Months passed after Noah left for Chicago. At first, the silence in Emma's apartment felt unbearable. The space that once echoed with laughter now held quiet reminders of him. The mug he always used, the jacket he forgot on the chair, the playlist they made together. She tried to keep busy, throwing herself into work, picking up new hobbies, even visiting old friends. But at night, when everything slowed down, she found herself staring at her door, half expecting that familiar knock. They texted often at first, small updates and goodnight messages that kept them close. But as Noah got busier with his new job, the messages grew shorter and the calls less frequent. It wasn't out of neglect, just the weight of distance and time zones. Emma understood, but some nights the quiet felt heavier than she could handle. Still, she didn't give up. She believed in what they had, even if it existed miles apart. Winter came early that year. One snowy evening, Emma was returning from work when she saw a delivery box outside her door. She picked it up, curious, and when she opened it inside, she froze. Okay. It was the same brand of coffee Noah always brought. Over, along with a handwritten note for the mornings that feel too quiet. "I'll be back soon, Noah." Her heart ached, but this time it was a sweet ache, one that reminded her love didn't disappear with distance. Weeks turned into months, and Emma slowly found peace in her routine again. She started painting. On weekends, volunteering at a local shelter and spending time with neighbors she once barely knew. Yet no matter what she did, Noah's presence lingered quietly in her thoughts, her dreams, and sometimes in the way she still waited for that knock. One evening, as she was finishing a painting by her window, her phone rang. It was Noah. "Hey, stranger," he said, his voice warm but tired. Emma smiled. "Hey yourself, long day." "Yeah," he admitted, "but I wanted to hear your voice before it ended." There was a pause, soft, unspoken, but filled with emotion. "Noah," she said quietly, "do you ever wonder if we can make this work long term?" He was silent for a moment. "Every day. But I don't want wondering. I want doing. I'm trying to find a way back." She didn't say anything after that, just closed her eyes and let his words sink in. They hung between them like a promise waiting to be kept. The next few months were hard. The distance stretched longer than either of them expected. Sometimes Emma questioned whether love could really survive without presence. But whenever doubt crept in, she'd remember that morning when Noah first knocked on her door. The nervous smile, the warmth in his voice, the way her life had shifted in an instant. That memory kept her strong. Then came spring, soft, bright, and full of hope. The snow melted, the days grew longer, and Emma felt a strange sense of anticipation she couldn't explain. On one Sunday morning, she opened her curtains to a golden sky. She made herself coffee, put on a song Noah loved, and for the first time in months, she didn't feel lonely. She felt ready. Ready for whatever came next, and that's when it happened. A knock. Soft, familiar, impossible. Emma froze, her heart pounding. She stared at the door, afraid to hope. Slowly, she walked over and opened it. Noah stood there, tired, smiling, snowflakes caught in his hair. "Hey," he said simply. For a moment, Emma couldn't speak. "You're here?" she finally whispered. "I told you I'd knock again," he said, his voice trembling just slightly. "I got a transfer. Remote work. I'm home for good." Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming rush of relief and joy. She wanted to say so many things, how much she missed him, how she doubted, how she never stopped believing. But all that came out was, "You really came back." Noah laughed softly. "Of course I did. I was just waiting for the right time." They stood there for a moment, smiling through the quiet. Then Emma said, "You're freezing. Come in." Inside, everything felt the same, yet completely new. The air carried a warmth that had been missing for months. Noah looked around, noticing her new paintings on the wall and the small changes in her space. "You've been busy," he said. "I had to do something while waiting for you to knock," she teased gently. They both laughed, and the sound filled the room like sunlight. Over coffee, they talked for hours about work, life, everything they'd missed. Noah shared how the city never felt like home without her. Emma told him how the quiet made her realize that love wasn't about constant presence. It was about connection that didn't fade. At one point, Noah grew quiet. "Emma," he said, "while I was away, I kept thinking. Life's too short to keep waiting for perfect timing. I don't want to keep saying goodbye. I want to build something with you here, together." Emma's eyes softened. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "More sure than I've ever been." That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma felt peace, the kind that comes when you finally stop running from what your heart already knows. There was no grand confession, no dramatic ending. It's just two people who had walked through distance, fear, and uncertainty. Finding their way back to each other over the next few weeks, their lives began to blend naturally again. Noah found a small place nearby, though he spent most of his time at Emma's. They cooked dinner together, took long evening walks, and sometimes they'd just sit quietly on the couch, enjoying the kind of comfort only true companionship can bring. One night, while they were watching the rain, Emma said softly, "You know what's funny? I used to hate rainy days. Now I love them." "Why?" Noah asked. "Because the first time you knocked on my door, it was raining. And every drop since then has reminded me of that moment." He smiled. "Then I guess we owe a lot to that storm." She laughed. "Yeah, we do." As the rain continued to fall outside, Emma leaned against him, feeling his warmth. She realized that love doesn't always arrive with grand gestures. Sometimes it comes with a knock at the door when you least expect it. Sometimes it grows, quietly, patiently, until it becomes the thing you can't imagine living without. Months later, Noah helped her hang one of her new paintings on the wall, a simple piece of a front door under soft rain light. Beneath it, she wrote a small caption, "The knock that changed everything." And every time she looked at it, she remembered that love didn't just find her, it stayed, even when tested by time and distance. That evening, as they sat together with coffee and laughter filling the room, Emma thought back to the girl she was before that first knock, lonely, guarded, unsure. Now she felt whole. Love, she realized, wasn't about being ready. It was about answering the door when it arrived. And she did.